on, Lindsay. We're nearly there.
Just catching my breath. Hey, how about a quick water break, yeah?
Yes, please.
We don't have... We'll make time.
Making a swift return to where we'd begun was tough, but necessary. The climbing dash we made up the stairwell was hard on everyone, but for those of us wearing cumbersome armor and carrying heavy weapons, it was absolutely brutal. So we'd earned a brief pause and a couple swigs of water. Then we set off again. Soon enough, we were back at the aquarium. Through the clear walls of the enclosure, there was nothing to be seen. Not even a wormhole. May had told Jonas not to reopen the portal until the end of the day. But as I was prone to forget, the days are longer on the other world, so we still had time. Just how much, none of us were entirely sure. We hadn't exactly been keeping track. Being underground, without a view of the sun, it was impossible to do so anyway. And the only clock we'd noticed was on the cover of that old book Joseph had stolen from the Cabal's archive. The only thing we could be sure of about our window of time was that it was quickly closing. So if we were going to do this thing for Piper and Xiao, we had to do it on the double.
Which way?
I need rest. More water, please.
There's no time. We have to keep moving. Where do we go, Doctor?
There, over there.
I see no doorway.
It is there, I assure you.
Where exactly? There?
To the left a bit.
Here?
Yes.
You're sure?
Before I could fire, Joseph did so. The blast had not torn a hole in the wall, but rather knocked down an unseen door that only became visible with its removal.
A hidden passageway.
Not anymore. Come on.
Go through, hurry.
This hallway, it leads to your old lab?
Yes, but this is not a hall, it is a skywalk.
A skywalk? But we're underground. How is there... Oh, I see what you mean.
This looked like just another sterile corridor, except that it had a sizable bay window at the midpoint. Rushed as we were, our group could not help but pause. We pressed close to the glass, daring to accept the view on the other side. Sitting adjacent to this facility was a massive, subterranean silo that seemed to plunge just as deep into the earth as the Bunker of Babel. I got vertigo as soon as I looked down, and I had to quickly bring my eyes back up. Doing so, I saw that the roof of this enormous chamber was retractable, to allow for vertical takeoffs. Takeoffs of what? Well, for that, I had to peer back down again. This time I was less dizzied by the depths than I was by what I saw there, and by the realization that came with it. This was a hangar. A hangar for... unidentified flying objects. I counted 5 of them. All appeared to be constructed of the same pewter-like metal. That, or they simply shared a similar paint job. I can't say for sure. Being so far above them, details were unattainable. What we could discern about the vessels was their basic shapes. 2 of them were the classic saucers, 2 of them triangular, and the 5th was cylindrical. I looked to my husband, remembering a conversation we had a while back in which he told me that the Cabal had recovered Nephilim technology from the other world. For context, this was in the late 1940s, after the World War, when they had wrestled control of the orb away from Pendergast for a time. The great scientist was able to reclaim it, but while it was in their possession, the secret society had conducted exploratory missions to the sister Earth. During one of their excursions, they had found a dirigible abandoned by the Giants. It was not unlike the one that Joseph, May, and I had discovered on our route to the Lost Isles. Except this one was still intact. The Cabal had managed to get this craft back through the portal to the Bunker of Babel. They had been reverse engineering the technology ever since. It is no coincidence that it was in this chapter of American history that the phenomenon of the flying saucer began. The Cabal had used Nephilim technology to build their own fantastic flying vessels. and they had to be tested, of course. Sightings of these in the skies of our country were likely unintentional. At first. But now, well, remember, the Cabal was convinced that the Nephilim had an extraterrestrial origin. As we discussed in their museum earlier, disclosure would happen, but it would be on their schedule. The secret society had slowly been disseminating information, gradually conditioning the world to accept the existence of an alien race, to prepare us for their eventual advent. It was a psyop that stretched over more than a century. It would culminate with the arrival of the Argosy in 2060. From the very start, I had jokingly called this place the real Area 51. It wasn't a joke anymore. There were 100 different exclamations to be made in that moment, and yet nobody spoke a one. Even for those of us who had known this was happening, the sight of it was still shocking. Piper eventually got us moving again. At the end of the skywalk was neither an elevator nor a staircase, but a ramp. It had hydraulic struts on either side, suggesting it could be lifted into the ceiling. When it was sealed shut, the ramp was probably invisible, like the door Joseph had blown open earlier. I knew we must be getting close to the surface, since the entryways were disguised. Our group scurried up the ramp and found ourselves in a featureless room that opened to a lengthy passageway. At the end of this was an impressive vault door. Do not envision one like Joseph's, or one from any other bank for that matter. This was something else altogether. It was highly advanced with what looked like a hand and retina scanning station standing adjacent. But it, like the ramp, had been left ajar. We had encountered nothing but locked doors since our incursion, so this felt wrong. The Cabal could have closed them remotely, and I doubted it was an oversight that they had not. I suspected we were being lured into another trap, and said as much. Piper, however, seemed sure that this pathway had been cleared for the evacuation, to remove the facility's not inconsiderable staff as quickly as possible. The majority of their personnel had been at work here, near the surface, and not in those lower levels we had been exploring. That made sense, as the deeper you went into the Bunker of Babel, the more top secret the contents of each tier became. And I suppose that's why the Traveler of Time and Space had been placed at the very bottom so long ago, and now once again. But here we were, near the top, where the civilian workers toiled away, where Xiao once had.
How close are we to the surface?
It's the next level up. We are under the command center now.
Where's your old lab?
Down there.
Lead the way, Doc. All these doors,
Other labs.
but no windows. You can't even see inside. That's the point, to keep them all contained, compartmentalized, so that the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing. Except in this case, the left hand doesn't even know there is a right. So every lab is a different project, huh? I wonder what else they're up to.
Stop.
We all startled at the sound of my husband's voice. Joseph had not uttered a word since his snarling revelation earlier, but then no one had spoken to him either. He'd frightened us. All of us. Not even I had known that his motive for our mission here was rooted in revenge for what had been done to me. But apparently it was. It's why he'd pushed for us to help Piper and Xiao fulfill their vow to Keith. He knew it was his opportunity to strike yet another blow at the Cabal while we were still here. It was May who had uncovered his secret motivation and who had felt the most betrayed by it. Tensions remained high between my husband and my amalgam sister. As for me, I did my best to stay between them, to keep the peace, to maintain our solidarity. We could have words later. Heck, the three of us could even have a nice big argument about it. But only when we were safely home. For now, it was about getting things done. So, despite Joseph's subterfuge and May's objections, we had still agreed to assist our friends, if not for their sake, then for Keith's. And we were so close to completing our final task, but now, another distraction.
Lindsay, do you hear that?
That's not... No, it can't be.
Stand back.
Wait, we need to...
Wait here a moment.
What is he doing? Joseph, is it really him?
Of whom do you speak?
What's going on?
Joseph, is it...
Yeah, it's him. It's the Bard.
This is the Endless Elsewhere podcast, Chapter 29, The Cornered Animals. I promptly went to join Joseph. The others followed behind, but did so a little more hesitantly. Beyond the now destroyed door was what we had expected, an ultra-modern laboratory with the most cutting-edge technology. However, none of the elaborate computers or the advanced instrumentation were of any interest to us. No, we were far more concerned with what all of these were concerned. Caught in a web of wires and cables was an old friend of ours. But he did not look the same as before. It had been a while since last I'd seen the Bard, and in that time, the machine had taken a lot of punishment. I looked on him with pity. His metallic plating, already aged and clouded with patina, had suffered new and extensive damage. Recall, it was only over the phone that I had heard the Bard and the non-man do battle with Heartland security in the old church. This was just after Joseph and I were married, when we were on the run. The two of them had confronted Troxel and her death squad to slow them down and to buy us time. Our inhuman allies had been victorious, but at what cost I did not know until now. Amid the dents and dimples of bullet impacts, there was also a pair of blackened scorch marks in his side. They looked like electrical burns of some kind, maybe from the weapon that had brought him down when captured. The Cabal had long sought the Bard, and at some point finally got their hands on him. Not only did he contain the Pendergast cosmic ray engine, but he was also the original example of automatonics, the science of implanting a human brain into a robotic vessel. So, yeah, he was doubly important to those who want to possess and control all forms of knowledge. It's also important to remember that Pendergast placed the brain of his son Roderick into this thing. He did so with the desperation of a father's grief after Roderick was killed in the same war that Jonas Gentry survived. But unlike Hardesty, who would perfect this science decades later, Roderick's mind was wiped at death. His personality departed with his soul, as Joseph described it. So Pendergast, to give his creation some kind of verbiage, had taught the robot to reply and comment in all Shakespearean quotations, the Bard of Avon being a favorite of his son in life. Despite this, there lingered still traces from the brain's original bygone possessor that would surface now and again, like what we heard him saying now. "I told you not to climb the cherry tree." This was apparently something Roderick had said to his sister Adelaide when they were children. It was a glitch, nothing more. Like I said, it had been a while since last I'd seen the Bard, which means it's been even longer since last I've described him to you, listener. As a quick reminder, he'd been designed with a half-torso that was mounted to a telescoping shaft which, in turn, was mounted to a dome that, in turn, encompassed a sphere by which the mechanical man rolled instead of walked. He lacked legs, yes, but he did have arms, multi-jointed arms with claspers in place of hands. His head was cylindrical and fit deep into his angular shoulders. It could swivel left and right, but could not tilt. The Bard would have to lean his entire body backward or forward to peer up or down, and he did so with large, rounded lenses on a mostly blank face. Aside from the slitted mouth from which his lifeless voice projected, there was nothing else to the visage. You'll also recall, listener, that Hardesty had patterned his own mechanical body on the Bard's design to honor Pendergast, the author of this technology. And now the two of them had one more thing in common. Both were prisoners of the Cabal.
How the heck did he...
Wow, a robot.
It really is him. Wow. Oh, hey, what's your fish friend doing?
He's okay, he's just checking him out. Clyde knows all about the Bard. His people fought alongside him ages ago. He's probably heard the stories.
As have we all.
But how did the Bard get here? We left him with her friends back in... Piper, how did he... I have no idea. You didn't know the Cabal had captured him?
I wasn't with the rest of your people, Lindsay. I was with Callista, remember?
But you spoke to Keith. He didn't mention this?
We didn't do much catching up. Maybe he didn't even know about the Bard. He was alone when he found me and Xiao in the sarcophagus. Also,
What?
during the fall of Circle City, I got a call from Ryan. It didn't sound like he was with Keith then, either. Maybe they split up.
Huh. They were after the Bard for so long. Joseph, why haven't they...
Taken him apart yet? Same reason they left the PX-39 intact. This is the last example of the...
That's not entirely true.
Oh, right.
The vehicle, you mean? The one on my world.
No, there's actually something else here on Earth that... Never mind, it doesn't matter. So he's still in one piece because they're afraid of accidentally destroying him.
They're being more careful here than they were with the Nephilim technology, if that tells you anything.
So they're just, what, studying him?
I guess so. That must be why he's hooked up to all these monitors. But this thing here is different. It's not taking a reading, it's not taking anything but giving. I think they're running an extra current of power through him.
They're shocking him? Why?
It's probably the only way they can restrain him while he's still active.
They need him running in order to figure him out?
This machine is keeping him in a constant state of overload or something, I'm not really sure.
We can't leave him like this. Do you think we can disconnect him? You know, without...
Without frying him or us? I don't know. Doctor, ideas?
Sorry, my field is genetics, not mechanics.
There must be a safe way to switch off the juice.
It'd be nice if there was a big red button on this thing. Why does it all have to be so technical?
I'm really getting sick of hearing myself say this, but we really don't have time for this. We gotta keep moving.
She is correct. Stand aside, my friends.
Wait, May, don't!
There. It is done.
What's wrong with him?
He's rebooting. His version of it, anyway.
Hopefully that's what this is. Hello? Are you...
Careful, Lindsay. After all they've done to him, he might be a little mixed up.
Hey, bud. Can you hear me? You're free now.
Liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead. Run hence, proclaim, crying about the streets.
I think he's okay. Welcome back.
Wait, Lindsay. Keep your distance until we know for sure.
Know what?
You're not dressed like Adelaide. He may not think you're his sister anymore.
Oh, right. That.
Okay, another quick brush up. According to the third manuscript, one of Pendergast's dying acts was to charge the Bard with the defense of his daughter Adelaide, with whom the robot had confused me when Joseph and I found him in the cavern beneath the Pendergast estate a few years ago. I had needed a change of clothes and was wearing one of her old outfits when the mechanical man reactivated. The Bard had done all that I asked of him, thinking I was her, his sister, as that's how the revivified brain of Roderick perceived her. But I wasn't dressed like Adelaide anymore. I was, however, dressed like him now. I wore Strangel armor, and so did the Bard. While we are rehashing things, listener, also recall that while they had adventured together on the other world so very long ago, the Bard had suffered some critical damage, forcing Pendergast to improvise a repair. He had helped himself to one of the Strangel's breastplates and welded it over the chest of his creation. It's also worth mentioning that when Joseph and I rediscovered the Bard, we had borrowed this armor for a time. We'd used it to signal the Strangels who'd come to Earth, May and her friends, to show that we were friends. It had worked then, so my hope was that it would work again, just in reverse this time. But it didn't. The Bard didn't seem to recognize my armor. But he did recognize something.
I know this face full well.
You remember me? Who am I?
Most certain. Sister, welcome. Pray you be ever known to patience, my dearest sister.
Okay, good. So, listen, we need your help. The people that brought you here, they're coming to hurt us. to hurt me. So we have to.
We're in for a fight, is what she means. Are you up for that?
Let me have war. Say aye. It exceeds peace as far as day does night.
This robot is going to kill many people today.
It occurred to me later that without Joseph and I, the Cabal would have already cut the heart out of the Bard, would already possess the engine of boundless clean energy. Let me explain. When we'd found him, the breastplate was loose because inside of his chest cavity is where Adelaide had secreted her diary. But after we'd used the armor to make our alliance with May and her friends, we'd later had Hardesty reattach it to the Bard, welding it back into place. The breastplate had protected the Pendergast technology from the Cabal, first in battle, then in captivity. Their soldiers hadn't hesitated to shoot it, but their scientists had hesitated to remove it. And because they had not dissected him, because he was still intact and now free, we added one more to our number. It was rather amazing. We had invaded the Bunker of Babel, fully expecting to encounter enemies and enemies alone, but we just kept finding friends along the way. Our group, an increasingly strange lot, was about to move on, had even turned to do so, when something caught my attention. When I stopped to look, everyone else did likewise. Obviously, the Bard had been our sole focus since entering here, but only now, upon exiting, did I realize the robotics lab was not dedicated solely to him. I peered down the long room to the opposite end of it. My eyes moved past all of the high-tech hoopla that meant nothing to me. Instead, I fixed my gaze on the wall where, amid several schematics, hung a Renaissance-era sketch. A reprint, of course. I recognized it. The illustration was famous. It's one you've seen as well, listener. Within an intersecting square and circle was the nude figure of a man. He appeared to have 4 arms and just as many legs, but these were simply superimposed. They were drawn this way to show different positions able to be held by the limbs. Something about ideal human proportions or whatever.
I know that drawing. Joseph, what's...
It's Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man.
Ah, that makes sense.
Why?
Because we're looking at Project Vitruvius.
What's that?
No idea, but that's what it says on all the blueprints.
I looked to the schematics around the reprint, and while I could not understand half of what was written, the illustrations were clear enough.
A robot? Like the Bard?
They were building a synthetic man. No, not like the Bard, not at all. They were not using automatonics. They were building a proper android with a computerized brain.
Artificial intelligence, you mean?
We can only assume.
Well, it doesn't look like they were successful.
What makes you say that?
Because there's no android here.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, they probably just moved him.
Unless he escaped.
Lindsay, what?
Nothing. It just sounds weirdly familiar.
What does? Vitruvius? You've heard that name before?
No, I haven't. But I might have... The story sounds... Whatever. We'll figure it out later. Come on.
Our group left the robotics lab, following Xiao to the genetics one further down the hallway. Joseph took aim at the door and cleared our way yet again. We went inside, but this lab was not like the one we just left. We could not have imagined what awaited us here.
What the heck?
Jonas saw something like this on the Lost Isles. Long ago, the Atlanteans, they performed experiments on their own people. Real Frankenstein crap.
This isn't that. This is worse.
The instrumentality here was far more elaborate and plentiful than what we'd seen so far. The purposes and functionality of it all meant nothing to any of us save Xiao. But his focus, like ours, was fixed on a row of cylindrical transparent tanks standing in a row at the far end of the room. Each was filled with an amber fluid of some kind, and floating therein were bodies varying in age and size. Most of these were infantile, but they ranged into early adolescence. They were disfigured. Or so they would have been if these had been human children. They were not.
Oh, horror, horror, horror. cannot conceive nor name thee.
As I said, the process was always a failure. They've made progress since I was here, but no viable specimen it would seem.
So none of them lived?
Then why is that one empty?
Maevalesse pointed with her spear to one of the tanks. There, in the orange liquid, floated nothing. The emptiness was decidedly worse, more hideous even, than if we'd seen yet another malformed creature inside.
So what was in there? And what's through there? Xiao?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? This was your lab.
They've made changes. There wasn't a door there before.
Nor will there be again.
We moved through the hollow doorway into an adjoining chamber. It was smaller than the lab, but not by much. It was a hospital room. That's the best way to describe it. Dominating the length of the space was an enormous bed, and in it, an equally enormous figure. Similar to how we'd found the bard, there was a menagerie of monitors tethered to the body, all of them blipping and bleeping away with the vitals of the gigantic patient. It was a Nephilim, or as close to one as genetic engineering could imitate. The figure was gaunt, the limbs angular. The whole emaciated body was wrapped in a skin-tight thermal suit. To keep it warm, I guess. The face was mercifully covered in a breathing mask. The head, which had been shaved, was crowned in a netted apparatus of electrodes. I traced these thin wires to one of the many diagnostic devices crowding the bed. Joseph's own attention had arrived here as well.
Oh, it's an EKG. That is right, isn't it, Xiao?
难以置信.
Xiao?
Yes?
EKG, yeah?
It's scanning his brainwaves?
It does not appear as though there are brainwaves to be scanned.
We looked to Xiao, who had found a chart at the end of the bed and was now leafing through the pages. His need for answers was even greater than ours, this monstrosity before us being the product of his work.
Well,
According to this, there's never been activity.
so it's dead?
More like it never was truly alive, or never truly aware, I should say. The body is very much alive, but
It's brain dead.
Lights on, nobody home. Got it. So this thing is just another failure, like the ones out there?
obviously and got further along in the process than the others. But yes, this clone is a body alone, a biological vessel, nothing more.
There is no life other than what comes from the Maker.
That didn't stop them from trying.
Trying to play God. So they made this thing? How? From the DNA they pulled out of that skeleton? Is that even possible?
They made a genetic copy of the DNA and inserted it into an egg cell, which was then implanted and gestated. After the birth, they kept the specimen nourished intravenously. The growth rate was astounding.
Hang on. Gestated? Some woman gave birth to this thing? Who volunteered for that?
My guess was that it was not voluntary.
So, if it's dead, or brain dead, what's the point of this thing? Are they just studying it, or...
They're just keeping it warm.
A look of absolute horror came over my husband's face. Joseph stepped closer to the clone. There were, of course, none big enough to cover it, so the caretakers had draped several layers of normal-sized sheets over the bed for the specimen to lay upon. Joseph, taking a fistful of this white fabric, pulled upward, revealing the frame. I would have assumed this was a hospital bed, an enlarged one certainly that they'd customized for this titanic body, but it was not. It was actually an ancient bed of iron.
This is what I was looking for in the museum.
A giant's bed?
Not the bed of just any giant. This bed belonged to Og.
Og?
It means long-necked. He was the king of Bashan. It's in the Old Testament. He was said to be the last of a certain line of the giants, the Rephaim.
Okay, and? So they didn't have a bed big enough for their science project, and brought this one up from the museum. Makes sense to me. Why is this a big deal? Because this is actually...
No, it can't be. Og was, on the other side of the planet when he... Now, this monolith was found here in the States by prospectors in the 1870s.
Oh, so it's not the actual body of... And the use of this bed is what? Ceremonial?
Ritualistic. The science was only half of it. There's another part to this process, the spiritual part. You were right, Maevalesse. Only God creates. But these maniacs found a workaround. This thing isn't a failure at all. They knew exactly what they were making.
An empty vessel. One meant to be filled.
To be possessed.
So it's just a vehicle? A flesh and blood vehicle.
By which a Nephilim is to be reborn upon the earth.
A chill came over me that I dismissed as nothing more than another mention of the monolith. In the following moment, however, I knew better. I was feeling the same vile, malicious presence again. But here now.
Xiao, what's going on?
I do not understand. Why is
He
it?
followed us here.
And they knew he would. That's why they left us alone. They wanted us to make it this far, to lead that spirit from the monolith to this body.
But the giant ghost has been in the facility all along, right?
So why is the spirit only now uniting itself to this flesh?
可以走了吗?
Xiao?
Why are we still here?
To do what we came here for. Mr. Leck, would you like to do the honors and shoot this thing in the head?
Oh, it'll be my sincere pleasure. Come on, work, you stupid... Ugh, the battery's dead. Lindsay, you get him.
Yep.
We had not charged the zappers since our skirmish with the security force. Since then, my husband and I had been blasting our way through the bunker of Babel. Just like the time, neither of us had been keeping very good track of our weapon's energy supply. An easy, even understandable mistake considering all of our distractions, but still inexcusable. Joseph had taken care of the last couple of doors that stood in our way, but now his zapper was depleted, which meant the one on my arm would soon be as well. I had precious few shots remaining, but that was more than enough to kill this creature. However, as you just heard, when I took aim at the abomination, he reared up in his ancient bed and flung out his enormous arms, blindly sweeping nearly the entire room. Everyone in our group leapt or ducked out of the way, including me. Doing so sent my particle beam into the floor and Piper's bullets into the ceiling. She'd been quick to open fire when I missed, but not quick enough. I would have taken a second shot and was even getting up to do so, but I had to abandon it when Joseph leapt suddenly in front of me. He did so to stop the cloned giant who was to strike at me before I could him. My husband blocked the monster, yes, but then lost his shield to him. Og, I guess we can call him, erroneous as it may be, ripped the shield from Joseph's grasp, a move that sent my husband sprawling. But now at least, Joseph was out of the way and I could take my shot. Except I couldn't, because now the abomination had one of our shields. Og raised it to block another attack by Piper, deflecting her bullets just as well as it had the security forces earlier. I didn't know if the shield could withstand one of the particle beams or not, so I chose to conserve what little of them I had left. Besides, May was now ordering us from the room. I couldn't argue with a swift retreat and joined my companions in a mad dash back into the lab. Behind us, we heard Og furiously crumple the shield. A foolish act, I thought, as he could have continued to use it in his own defense. Despite his mistake, the giant's rash action had served to disarm us. Joseph and I, anyway. When he crushed the shield, there was more than the sound of folding metal. There was also the distinct note of shattering and even sparking. Then I remembered the charging plate Joseph had strapped to the inner side of his shield. It, too, had been flattened between the giant's powerful hands. We could no longer charge the zappers, meaning that Joseph's was now completely useless, and mine soon would be. My husband must have also heard and realized this, because he let the zapper slip from his gauntlet and fall to the floor once we were back in the corridor. It felt wrong to leave it behind, but the zapper was dead weight he didn't need, especially now that we were making an escape. Desperately, we retraced our route. The bard fell behind. I thought it purposeful that he was bringing up the rear to watch our backs as we fled, but in fact he was struggling to keep our pace. We soon lost sight of the mechanical man. Worried, Joseph and I began to slow, hoping he'd catch up, but he didn't. The pair of us did not stop completely until we were at the bottom of the ramp again. He and I turned to wait for the bard as the rest of our group continued on to that massive vault door farther down the hallway. It was several more minutes we spent in uncomfortable expectation before the robot came trundling down the ramp to rejoin us.
Finally.
Poor guy's in worse shape than we thought.
You okay, bud?
Tired with all these. For restful death, I cry.
Hang in there. We're almost home. Come on.
Why did you guys stop? Piper, what are you doing?
Access denied.
She is trying to close the door.
Can you?
I hope so. We outran that creature, but...
Access denied.
But he'll be coming along any minute now. Yeah.
Access denied.
If I can override the eye and hand scans, if I can get this stupid door closed, there will be no getting through it, even for him. Or the rest of them.
Access denied.
What?
It's not just the monster we have to stop. Remember that army the Cabal has been holding back? They're not holding them back anymore.
Access denied.
What do you mean, holding back? Why would they? How do you know they've been...
They should have overrun us long before now. They let us find the creature, in the same way they let us find the PX-39.
Access denied.
So what? They thought the giant clone would do what the sonic weapon couldn't? Kill us for them?
Isn't it obvious?
So it's true? We provoked the possession?
The timing was beyond coincidental.
Still, though, could we have...
It is not us, my friends. It is the spirit that lives in us. We have brought holiness to the stronghold of iniquity. The evil here cannot bear it. That creature will do all it can to kill us, to rid itself of the presence we carry.
Jonas was right. Remember, Joseph? While we fight our battles, there's another one going on all around us. Unseen.
And we face both now weakened, compromised.
What?
You brought us here with unholy intent. Do you not see what you have done, Joseph? Because of your desire to destroy our enemy, you have only aided them in their schemes. Darkness begets darkness.
Joseph's face wrenched. He was either about to lash out at Maevalesse or beg her forgiveness. He didn't get the chance for either. Clyde slapped his webbed hand against the floor to get our attention. When we turned to him, we saw that the aquatic had lowered to one knee to splay his long fingers against the cold tile beneath us. He felt the vibration of something monstrous. I thought of the behemoth he'd felt coming. Og, giant as he was, could not compare to its size, however. But maybe an army of soldiers could feel comparable. Piper was right. The Cabal was done playing games. They had unleashed their full force upon us. But Og was closer and would reach us first.
Should we?
Piper, can you get this door to...
Access denied.
Ugh, no. They must have disabled it.
Great. The only door in this place that's locked open.
His nearing was fearsome enough, so now try to imagine Og's arrival. There was a safe enough distance between our position at the vault door and the ramp. That is to say, it was a wide enough gap that we did not flee when he faltered into view. Besides, I still had a couple shots left in the zapper, and Piper her own arsenal. We could cut him down long before he got to us. For that reason, we held our ground, looking on. Well, that, and the abomination was acting very strangely. I thought he'd lost balance on the incline, the way he stumbled down the ramp. But when Og tried to put another step toward us, he staggered drunkenly into the wall. He crashed against this and left a deep impression behind when he pushed away from it. The creature managed a short, lurching march before losing his footing yet again. This time he returned to the wall on purpose, to brace himself against it, to keep himself upright. He snarled angrily through the oxygen mask. Why he continued to wear it, I have no guess, other than he'd forgotten it was there, if he'd noticed the mask at all. Og had overlooked many things, what with his full murderous attention on us. There had been a tube attached to the mask, but only half of it remained, severed and dangling from the giant, as were a dozen or more wires that had tethered him to all those monitors. When Og had arisen from that ancient bed, they'd all been torn loose. He had no care for any of it. The monster was single-minded. With a grunt, he tried to straighten to his full towering height, only to scrape his bald head across the ceiling. Forced back into a hunch, Og growled and once more tried to come forward. Almost immediately, he collapsed to one knee as if he'd tripped over the air. Then we realized why our group had escaped him so easily, why he had not overtaken us in just a few of his enormous strides. It was the body. It had never been in use. The muscles were not ready for locomotion. Or maybe the ghostly essence of the giant had to relearn the mechanics of a physical form. Even if this was truly an exact clone of his original body, which it most likely was not, but rather a composite at best, the spirit had not operated his own flesh and blood in a millennia. I recalled the flailing and floundering he'd done when he'd first awakened. There was very little coordination to it, just desperate thrashing and groping. The best he'd managed was to crush the shield and the charging plate. So while his motor skills had yet to fully return, the power behind them was already there, and it would be more than enough to kill us. All the giant had to do was get himself within reach of our group.
Lindsay, Piper, would you please take him down?
Yes, enough delay. Slay our tormentor.
Got him. Piper, you ready?
Piper, what's wrong?
Am I doing this alone, or
Don't shoot him.
what? Why?
Don't kill him. Not yet.
What do you mean? Now is the time, before he can...
Trust me. Please.
Trust was a tricky thing when it came to our old friend Piper. In our time with her, she'd given us every reason to trust her, and every reason to not. Much to the chagrin of both my husband and my amalgam sister, I lowered the zapper. Now we had no choice but to resume our flight, to continue a reverse of our path to the rendezvous. Reaching the stairwell again, we scrambled inside and swirled down the steps. The climb down was easier than the climb up, but more importantly, it was faster. Well, for the bipeds anyway. The bard, already struggling to keep pace with us, fell behind again as his rollball was not particularly adept to stairs. With one of his Shakespearean quotes, he urged us to continue on without him. We reluctantly did so. For the second time, we returned to where we'd started, and for the second time, there was no portal awaiting us. Even still, we rushed across the chamber and into the smaller one at its center. Within the clear walls of the aquarium, the doorway between worlds would open at any moment, and we could escape this wretched place. Once the bard had finally rejoined us, he took a place at the back of the enclosure with Xiao. Then the rest of us turned our attention to defending the aquarium. Clyde was less familiar with the testudo, so Joseph took the shield he'd been carrying, the one given to the aquatic by Jonas before we'd come here. My husband, May, and I reformed a smaller version of the phalanx in the doorway, plugging the hole we'd made earlier. Piper found a place among us, her weapon aimed between our shields. The aquarium had been our prison, but now it was our fortress. The polycarbonate walls of it would hold up against Og and the Cabal's forces alike. We just had to defend this doorway until another appeared behind us. Once the wormhole formed, we were home free. Not that it was going to be that easy.
Piper, why didn't you want me to shoot it? And why didn't you?
I almost did, but I realized something. That monster out there is extremely valuable to the Cabal, yeah? If he's dead, then so are we. The soldiers won't storm in here guns blazing if that monster is in the crossfire. Even stumbling around like some drunk, he'll likely get to us first.
Right. You could shoot his legs out from under him, cripple him. We could take the thing hostage. It could buy us some more time.
It was a solid plan. There was just one problem. Og did not reach us first. That long-awaited army did. While the giant was busy squeezing himself through the stairwell and staggering down its steps in a body he could barely control, the massive platform, that room-sized elevator that moved between tiers, lifted up into the ceiling. And when it came back down, it was crowded with soldiers. They wore tactical gear over black uniforms without markings or insignias. These men and women were not military, but were as heavily armed as any. They stepped off the platform and over the bodies of the security forces that we had earlier put down. The squad went no farther, however, but rather held their position as the platform went back up to collect another batch of them. We'd been referring to the coming threat as an army without really knowing if it would be so high a number as that, but it certainly felt like it as they filled the chamber around us. We watched them form ranks, demonstrating to us just how outmatched we were. I really started to hate the transparent walls. But hey, cornered animals always fight the hardest, right? We braced ourselves for their attack, but then came a welcome distraction. Arriving fashionably late, Og crushed himself through the doorway of the stairwell, breaking apart the jamb as he lurched into the chamber with a guttural bark. This room had a vaulted ceiling, so he was free to rear up to his full height. Towering over us all, he looked to the aquarium, to his prey, then down to all the soldiers between us. I'm not sure exactly how the spirit inside the clone perceived them. At worst, they were his competitors trying to kill us before he could. At the very least, they were in his way. The maddened bloodlust of Og sent him clumsily but viciously against them, the giant flopping his massive form into their ranks. He wallowed among them, snatching up and ripping apart men and women with his hideous might. The chamber was repainted red. This was to our advantage, of course, to have our enemies fight each other. Except, there was no actual fight. For as well armed as they were, the soldiers did not raise their weapons to the giant. Clearly they had been ordered not to engage with the cloned creature. The Cabal had gone to extraordinary lengths to create this thing. No harm was to come to it. The sacrifice of their own underlings was characteristically heartless of the Cabal. No surprise there. What shocked me was that the soldiers themselves were apparently willing to make the sacrifice. This was not a trained military. This was a brainwashed cult. All we could do was hold our position, peeking through our shields, watching the carnage unfold. Og tore through the infantry who did their best to avoid the giant. They receded to the walls, but there was just so many of them that it was impossible for them all to stay beyond his reach. Plus, more were being added all the while. The platform never stopped delivering fresh troops. They were just shoveling bodies into the slaughterhouse. The monster would have been happy to butcher them all had he not eventually been stopped. Pushing through the clusters of combatants, a trio of newcomers came forward, daring to approach the giant. There were 2 men, and between them, a strange-looking figure. This person, their leader, was clad in an odd apparatus. A moment more and I realized it was one of those stealth suits Joseph and I had seen atop the roof of the Apex apartment block back in Circle City. You know, back when another contingent of the Cabal's lackeys had confronted another giant. Despite the body armor and helmet, it was clearly a woman underneath it all. The weapon she carried was no less bizarre than her attire. In a room full of firearms, she had a metal staff of some kind. And while her 2 escorts carried guns, these were unlike all the others. At her direction, the 2 men fired upon the giant, not with bullets, but with tranquilizers. The monster had scarcely noticed the prick of the projectiles before he collapsed resoundingly. With the creature on the floor, clearing the way, that army of soldiers raised their weapons again, taking aim at the aquarium, at us. They held their fire, however, as the woman came forward. In an agile leap, their leader bound over Og's massive body. She then twirled that staff of hers impressively. We could not see her face behind the visor of her helmet, but we could tell she was eyeing us.
Look at this freak show right here. You've got Butterfly Chick, a fish dude, a science nerd, a piece of traitor, a couple of knights in shining armor, and hey, you stole my robot. Seriously, you guys need your own comic book.
Who is that?
Can't you tell by the potty mouth? It's Troxel under all that.
Why does she sound like that?
There must be a voice changer in the helmet.
You guys aren't the only ones with cool costumes.
Why are you wearing that stealth suit? It only works on the dead.
It's not for the camo, silly. It's for the body armor. Plus, I look good in it. Call it a souvenir from the containment zone. Oh, I brought this with me, too. Who thunders to his captive's blood and death, I cannot judge, but to conclude with truth, their weapon, like to lightning, came and went.
Troxel had her own lightning weapon. On either end of her staff was a metallic fork. At her activating, an arc appeared between the prongs. It was an electrified bow staff that she wielded. I glanced back at the bard, to the scorch marks on his side I'd noticed earlier. This was the weapon used to capture him, and based on his response at seeing it, I think the mechanical man remembered it. If the staff was enough to bring even him down, it must be very powerful.
Doesn't matter how big or tough they are, huh? There's always something that can drop them. Don't worry, we gave Gigantor here a strong enough dose for an elephant. You're welcome, by the way. I didn't think there was anyone who could hate you guys more than me. But this guy really hates you. Why is that? I mean, aside from all the obvious reasons, of course.
And what are the obvious reasons?
Do you, really want me to list them?
Why do you speak to her?
If we keep her talking, it buys us more time.
So, what is it, Troxel?
Oh, I guess what really kills me is that you're f***ing nobodies. You're f***ing nobodies. A disc jockey and a librarian, or whatever the f*** you morons were. You haven't earned the right to be this dang annoying, to have caused this much trouble.
I remembered Piper telling us that the Cabal, at least their subordinates, operated as a meritocracy. Troxel had climbed to her position by doing who knows what. To her, Joseph and I had lucked into our successes, not earned them.
But ultimately, you two mean nothing. To me anyway. But there is one of you in there that's on my level, I think, and I want a rematch.
What is she talking about?
I am prepared if you are.
Wait, May, no!
Just remember, cutie, you don't have an army behind you. Not like last time.
But you have.
None of these boys and girls will interfere. I f***ing promise. Cross my heart and all that. Come on out here.
You're not going out there, May. You have nothing to prove to her.
But I do. I got something to f***ing prove. Get out here or we'll kill you all right now.
Maevalesse lowered her shield, breaking apart the phalanx.
Oh, there she f***ing is.
May, don't.
Talking isn't enough to stall anymore, Lindsay. She's buying us time.
Move aside, my friends. I must go out to meet her.
Absolutely not.
Maevalesse, please.
Even in the wrong that we do, the mistakes that we make, we belong to the Maker still. He awaits our return at all times.
Maevalesse, I'm so...
I know you are, my friend.
May nodded to Joseph, directing him to pull me out of the doorway, knowing I would not let her leave. As he did, May handed her shield off to Xiao. Of all the incredibly brave things I had seen my amalgam sister do in our time together, her stepping out to confront Troxel and the Cabal's army stood paramount among them. 1,000 or more guns were now aimed at her, and all she carried was a spear. She was allowed to keep it, the weapon being comparable enough to Troxel's electric bow staff for a fair fight.
That's my girl. Let's f***ing go.
I was very familiar with May's skill, but Troxel's surprised me. I would go so far as to say they were evenly matched. These were two warriors from different worlds, maybe the best either had to offer. Both had been molded, hardened into instruments of destruction by the most evil of masters, but only one of them had retained her soul. I prayed it would be the deciding factor in their battle. It became clear that Mae's spear could not puncture Troxel's armor. However, Mae's armor, while able to repel bullets, perfectly conducted electricity. So with the same weapon that had brought down the bard, Troxel repeatedly electrocuted my amalgam sister. The current was not restricted to the point of impact, but instead ran through her entire body. She cried out. It must have been excruciating. Between clashes, Mae began to unbuckle the straps of her breastplate. This eventually fell to the floor, and she kicked it out of the way. She shed other pieces of her armor as well, divesting herself of the heavy plating. Now if she took a hit from the bow staff, it would not be felt everywhere in her frame. Not that Mae was going to let that happen again. Troxel would not land even one more blow. Mae's natural agility and speed were no longer hampered by all of that armor. She came at Troxel with renewed vigor. The fight quickly climaxed. Mae's spear was broken, but she'd allowed it to be in order to take hold of Troxel's weapon. Mae wrestled it from our enemy and turned it against her. That's when we discovered that Troxel's armor also conducted electricity.
Yield. You are defeated.
Yeah, I'm beaten. But I'm also a sore loser. You, give me your f***ing gun.
One of Troxel's 2 escorts drew a pistol from his side and tossed it to the woman. It had no sooner reached her hand than she took aim at Mae's now exposed body.
No!
Mae was spun around by the impact, spun around to face us. The glow of her eyes immediately dimmed as a bloom of red brightened on her chest. Then, my amalgam sister fell. Do good. Fight evil. Repeat. I am Lindsay Leck, and this is the Endless Elsewhere podcast.